babe. Don't forget, we gotta get ready in 2 hours for that event, okay?
I got so much to do. How am I ever gonna get this done?
Jay, so do we need to cancel? What are you wearing? It's game night.
Hi guys, Dave Max 6. We are in Glendale, Arizona for my very first time, and for the very first time we have the great Dennis James, the Menace. Dennis, welcome to Muscle Beach TV on JayTV for the very first time, man.
Thank you, guys. I mean, it's about time you bring me on
It's
the show.
about time. I know. You're far, man. It's hard to get the hold of you. And I had this trip planned to shoot a couple of people, and I said, you know what, I gotta hit Dennis. It's been a long time since I got a chance to talk to him, and you look good, man. Everything good?
I'm trying to hang in there, man, as much as I can, you know. That's all I can do. I have no control over what's going on with the pandemic. All I can control is myself, just a little bit.
I know. You still look great. So, Dennis, I wanted to take this chance to talk a little bit about your history and go all the way back to when you were actually living in Thailand, and then moved, of course, to the States, and after that going to Oxen. You've been all over the world, and you finally settled in Glendale, Arizona, a few years back. So I want to kind of just tell people a little bit about your story, and let people know who may not know how you came about and how you made it all the way to fourth place in the Olympia, right? Yep. 2003.
2003.
I remember that.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
Last 4 call out, this 4 guys, that was awesome.
Yeah, first and last call out, yeah.
Damn, man.
So, yeah, it all started back in January 1990. I took a trip, my first trip to Thailand. I wasn't training back then, so I was just
Normal person.
normal, average person. Me and my friend took a trip to Thailand. We were supposed to stay for 2 weeks, and I ended up staying 15 years.
Jeez.
This is literally what ended up. I ended up not going back. Well, I came back like 3 months later. I got some more stuff, and I went back and stayed. So,
Why? Tell me why.
I was really young. You're in your early mid-20s, and back then Thailand was really nice. Compared to Germany, where I grew up. And I just liked it. It was just, I felt the vibe, and I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna stay as long as I like it. I had nothing to do, so I was like, never mind, just stay. And in '92, I started bodybuilding. I started training.
And why did you start bodybuilding in 92?
It was a $100 bet. It was a bet with a guy from Germany or Sweden. It was a few guys from Europe that used to hang out at the same bars we used to go to, and they come in with the tank tops and how less syndrome and all that.
Yeah.
So I remember I was drunk one night, and I was like, "You man, to look like you, it'd take me less than 3 months." There's no way you can. I said 3 months, handshake, boom, $100. Next day I went to the gym. Right there, it's a little gym. It was probably, I don't know, I say maybe 2,000 square foot gym.
Okay.
And I started training. I didn't know what to do, so I just followed one guy that looked good. Oh, I thought it looked good, and I just did whatever he did. I didn't know what I was doing, you know what I mean? So, and I basically won the bet after 6 weeks. Not changing my diet, just trained and still hung out at night, stayed, nothing changed. So, and maybe like a year later, no, not even a year, maybe 6 months later, I see some guy on the beach approach me and asked me, he said, "What show are you getting ready for?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I'm getting ready for the go-go bar tonight." He says, "Yeah, I mean, you should compete and blah, blah, blah. I'm the world's president's best friend." This is a guy from Germany back then.
Okay.
Now about world president. So he said, "Next time you're in Germany, I would like you to meet him." So, and I was planning to go to Germany to visit my parents like a couple of months after that. So I rang him up. I went to his house, and I remember I sit in his living room, and here comes the world president, because he lived right next door. And he had an old VHS tape in his hand. Back then it was still VHS.
Yeah.
And he puts the tape in. It was the 1992 Mr. Universe, NABA Universe. And Mustafa Mohammed, I remember you remember him or not?
Of course.
He won the NABA Universe in '92 overall. And he looked at me. I said, can you deal with? I said, yeah. I thought he was joking. I didn't think it was serious. So I said, yeah, easy. He said, okay, I invite you for the Night of Champions, NABA Night of Champions in Germany, which is a German qualifier for the universe, which is October. So we're talking May. We're in May. He said, I invite you October to do the qualifier. If you're good enough, I'll take you to England with the German team, even though I'm American. So I said, what time you want me to be there? Still thinking he's joking. I didn't know he was serious. So I said, okay. So he left, and I told the guy he was bullshitting, right? He said, no, he's serious. He said, I better get back to the gym. Now, keep in mind, I had no idea about dieting.
Right.
So now I'm in May. I got till October to get ready for a qualifier for the universe. I went back to Thailand, and there's a guy from Italy, a good friend of mine. He was a competitor back in the days, so he still looked great. So I asked him, I said, how do you diet for a show? I didn't know. He said, pasta, pineapple, and turkey.
Oh, jeez.
So I was eating pasta, pineapple, turkey all day, as much as I could. I didn't know there was a limit, you know. And I went to Germany. I got ready for that show. I basically competed, but I was not in the show because I was American, and this was the German national qualifier. Right. So, but this just let me compete to see what I look like next to these guys.
Right.
I ended up coming back 2 times that night just to guess because I didn't know how to pose. I was a break dancer back in the days.
Right.
So I pop locked, and the crowd loved it. So they brought me back. They gave me the guest poser show that Mustafa Muhammad, he was the guest poser that night.
Holy crap.
So I basically got his fireworks, I got his smoke, and all that. And I went to the universe a week later. They paid for my flight. I didn't meet the president. I didn't know who the American team was. And you know Bob Kruskin.
Yes.
He was the president who just passed. The guy from, there was one guy in my class. His name was, you know him, he was in Venice for years. He had that tanning salon.
Oh, yeah.
What's his name?
Joe?
Joe did.
Ryotan.
Yes.
Ryotan Joe.
He competed. He represented the U.S.
Wow.
And he placed out of the top 6, and I placed 4th.
Wow.
So I was the best U.S. competitor. I didn't even walk with the team. I didn't know who the team was. They didn't know I was coming. So that was my first universe, 4th place. Went back the next year, got 2nd. 3rd year, 95, I won. Wow. That's when I figured now I want to be, I want to go to the Olympia. How do you get to the IFFB? Because that was NABA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I did the NABA Pro Universe in '96 where I got 2nd. And then I flew to California.
So I remember when we had the Max Muscle store at the time, so you'd be a frequent, guy coming over there, and so we even had that poster with you in the car. Remember, like you remember that?
First ever
the black and white
suit with David Paul.
Yeah. So that was '98. You won.
No. That was '97.
Okay, '97.
That poster was '97. That was after I competed at the Border States Classics, my first show, the NPC show, John Lindsay's Border States Classic in San Diego, where I won the overall and qualified for the Nationals the same year, where I went to the Nationals in Dallas, placed 4th, and then came back for the USA's in '98.
And you won.
And won the overall.
That's what
first,
I thought.
That was
tie with Melvin, right?
It was, well, that's what they said. I remember John Lindsay always listen, Melvin was the high favorite. Nobody knew who I was.
That's right. You were brand new on the scene.
If this would have been a tie, well.
Okay.
Well, let's
I only remember you saying that because the year that Melvin won, you said there'll be no tie. You said that in his video. I don't know if you remember, but I remember.
I remember it wasn't. They said it was a tie. I said, if it was a tie, why did I win?
Yeah. Well, obviously you were better.
Well, then it wasn't a tie. That's what I'm trying to say.
I know. I get you. I get you.
Because if it was a real tie, they would have had to give it to Melvin because he was doing he was 3 years back to back.
Yeah.
And this is my first one.
I get it.
And it was the first year they introduced the super heavies.
That's right.
And Melvin was 228. And I remember at the check-in, I said, try to make 3 pounds. And he thought, no, I'm going to stay right here because he thought he's going to win.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was it. That's how it all started.
Wow. So you moved to did you move to California after that? Or where were you after?
What I did was, that was for the US in '97, for the USA's, and every year for the Olympia. I used to come 3 months out and stay in California.
Okay.
To train for the last 3 months, just to focus and literally just focus on training and nothing else.
So at that point you were still in Thailand?
Yes, I was in Thailand until November 2004.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
January
Okay.
90 to November 2004.
See, I used to see you all the time prepping for that. I figured, okay, you're living here, but I didn't. Okay, gotcha.
I had an apartment. I stayed at the Marina Towers.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I stayed there and for 3 months at a time, and that was it.
Yeah.
And when everything was said and done, photo shoots after the Olympia, I went back to Thailand.
And why did you leave Thailand and decide to move to the States?
I didn't move to the States. I moved
you
back
never
to
did?
Germany. I moved back to Germany for 3 years.
Wow.
And from Germany, I moved here in 2007, November 2007.
Okay.
So I've been here 13 years, 13 years this November.
Okay, but in between that, you actually went to Oxygen in Kuwait for a long time. And I remember you were the first famous pro to actually to be invited.
Before I went there, Ronnie Coleman went there.
Oh, okay.
Ronnie
Well, you
went
stayed there, though.
Ronnie,
That's what I mean.
Ronnie just went for an appearance.
Yeah.
Then they brought me, and I had very bad experience with the Middle East at that time, because I was in Bahrain before.
Okay.
And they treated me not so nice. Well, they treated me nice while I was there, but then they offered me a deal, and they wanted me to train their national team, and I made all the arrangements in Thailand, apartments, paid the deposits, and then they never showed.
Oh no.
So I lost money. Make a long story short, when Bada contacted me, I got an email. I didn't know who Bada was. He just opened his gym. It was open for a few weeks.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is my gym, and I want to. And every guy from the Middle East and Thailand, everybody owns everything. Even if they have no money, I say I own this, I own that. I was like, I own that. He sent me an email, and I want to bring you out. And I was rude. I said, send me some money before you talk. Something similar to this.
Well, you got burned, so.
And he did. So he did. So he backed it up. So I said, that's how I ended up in Kuwait for the first time, and met Bada. We got along great. And then he offered me, after a few times going there, he offered me a contract to stay for 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years you were there. Remember?
I didn't stay 2 years because it's impossible.
I know.
I tried. I mean, I had
You completely cut off from everything. From
everything.
normal
Everything.
life.
I went there a lot. Every year I brought guys. I brought them all from Johnny to Dennis Wolf,
yeah.
Branch. I brought them all over there. That's how
that.
he got to know these guys.
I know. You created this whole team.
I got Phil the guest post. I got Kai the guest post.
Yeah.
I made it possible. So,
Yeah.
that was back in 2005.
So it's fair to say that what's going on over there, the whole entire, Oxygen farm, they owe you a lot of that because you brought everything.
Well, I don't want to say they owe me because at the end of the day, they paid me.
No, I know.
You know what I'm
facilitated.
saying? Yeah,
sure.
but I don't want to sit here and say this is all because of me. I don't want to start another fucking can of worms because their egos hurt sometimes, and I don't want to.
I'm sure you would agree with that, though. I mean, you were the first one to.
If they would or not, it's just the way it is. It's facts.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what they're doing right now is awesome.
Yeah.
They basically took that and ran with it. You know what I'm saying? And that's a good thing. And that was his plan from the beginning. His plan was to make the Middle East, Kuwait, the Middle East Mecca.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think they're doing a great job.
Did you meet Rami when you actually were going there for those 2 years? Is that when you first met him or no?
No. Rami wasn't even training back then.
Right.
No, Rami didn't start training until 2010, I think, or 2011.
Yeah.
So now, when I was there, it was Filipinos who were wiping the benches and Egyptians, but not Rami. He wasn't there back then.
Because I remember Rami's first Olympia, which I think was 2013. The last one Jay they actually did. You were there with him, and I remember the press conference and all that stuff.
He was training for 3 years that time.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
That's crazy.
It is. So no, I didn't meet him in 2005. I didn't meet Rami until in person. I didn't meet him in person until the New York Pro, 2013.
Okay.
But I was writing diets for a person that I never saw, only on pictures.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that was going on for longer.
Wow. That's awesome. So Dennis, come over here a little bit closer. So tell me, when you finally decide to make your move in the States, because I remember training at Menace's gym in 07. I mean, it seemed to me like you were always around. That's why I thought you were living in the States, because you were always at the gym, and I felt like you were right with us. So all this time you're living in Germany. Why did you decide to finally come to the U.S. and say, I'm moving to Glendale, and why Arizona out of all places?
Good question. I mean, I had to make a choice. Germany is too far away from the center of the sport. Thailand was too, but it was just a cheap living. Yeah. So I figured in order to take it to the next level, I'll have to move. You know what I mean? So my plan was to go to Florida. I have a family in Florida, and my aunt, she's actually a realtor, so I went over there and looked at some houses, and I saw houses that I liked, and if it wasn't for the hurricanes that are coming through Florida sometimes, that scared my wife. She said, because she was so scared, I said, what am I going to do if you're out of the country and there's a hurricane? Yeah. So, I said, let's find a place in America where we can go where it's a little safer. So we found, back then, I knew Troy Else. Troy said, come out here, check this out. So we went around. I looked around, you know what, and I rented a place for 6 months and then bought a house while I was here the 6 months. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because when I was telling Jay I was coming here, he says, "Oh man, that's a hot bed right now. Troy is over there, and Dennis, and a lot of people actually migrated to Arizona, and it's not that far from Vegas. It's not that far from Cali. You can actually drive."
Yeah,
So
I used to drive to Vegas, to LA all the time.
Yeah.
I used to go when I was getting ready for shows, even for my last Arnold, 2009. I drove Sunday night. I drive to LA. And Friday night I come back.
there you go.
Sunday night I go back. I'm
There you
back
go.
for 9 weeks.
Now,
You
you
know.
get used to the drive after a while. It's not that big
Yeah,
a deal.
it was for me. It was like 4 hours, 4.5 hours.
You must
'cause
have
I-
gone fast though.
95, but I drive at night. You know, it
There
is.
you go,
You know,
there
it's
you
no
go.
traffic, so
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
it was okay.
Yeah. Wow. So what was your last? I was trying to remember because I know you retired and then you made a comeback. What was the last year you competed? I was trying to remember, and I couldn't remember.
2012. That was the
2012.
Masters Olympia
Okay.
in Miami.
Yeah.
That was
you
it.
look good then.
I didn't want to compete. I was done. I don't know if you remember at the press conference in 2012, September, because it was in December. The Masters were in December.
Okay.
In September at the press conference, I didn't know I was going to compete. And if you don't remember at the press conference when Bob put me on the spot and said, "Why don't you make a comeback? It's the Masters." And they said, "Let the audience decide." And the audience said yes. So I said, "I have to call my wife and see if I can get the green light." You don't remember that? So it was. I think it was like 11 weeks before.
Were you emceeing the show with him?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's why I was on stage. I was hosting the show, the press conference, and
Yeah.
that's when they put me on the spot. So I decided, okay, I'll do it,
Yeah.
and give me 11 weeks to get ready for that show.
Wow. But you're always in shape. You always kept yourself, and that's another thing that Jay wanted to talk about. Very few people or pro who have retired. You see them every day. You're like, I mean, not that you were nowhere near to what you were before, but
Right.
when people look at you, they're like, geez, Dennis is still in shape. Jay's still in shape. You've always lived that life. You've never stopped.
Yeah, I can't,
Still today.
You can't. I can't go from eating clean for 20-something years to going eating shit. I don't like shit.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like junk food. I mean, I do sometimes, but
Yeah.
you know, maybe once every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Because I could eat it every day if I want to.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't care.
Yeah.
But it's just in me. I just like
It's
to eat
ingrained
clean.
in your
Yes,
DNA, yeah.
I like to eat clean. I like to stay healthy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Especially now. I mean, you get older. I'm 54 on Sunday. So I do my cardio every day. You know, that's just something that I do. I can't stop doing it. I cannot train for 3-4 months. That's no
I
problem.
know.
But I can't go without cardio.
Wow. Okay. I don't know if you remember, because you used to come by the store all the time. And I remember at your peak of your career, you would come by the store and sometimes you would just chat with me. And I remember one time specifically you told me, no matter how big I get, because I was always kind of like in awe of you guys. You know, I've always been a fan of the sport. And I remember you told me, no matter how big I get, I never see myself big enough.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
No, but I believe you said that. I don't remember saying it, but I wouldn't be surprised because I never saw what others saw in me. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I had to drive to get bigger. It wasn't because I felt small.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get bigger because Ronnie was leading the pack. And if back then Sean Roden would have been the champ, I would have stayed. I would have just got better in just quality.
Yeah.
But chasing the champ, you got to get big. So,
Yeah.
you know, they don't talk about you when you're standing next to Ronnie and you're 100 pounds less. So that was my drive back then. But I didn't see myself that big because it's like everybody's big. Because, you know, you look at somebody else in front of you, he could be 50 pounds less and you'd be like, damn, he's big. Until you see pictures standing next to each other.
Yeah.
That's when I realized, I was like, now I look back at some pictures, I was like,
And that was big.
damn, I was big. That must have been. Now I'm asking myself, I said, that must have been uncomfortable.
Let me ask you something, Dennis, because we many times, I mean, I was close to Milos for many years, and he was helping you at some point, and so many times, and Jay says that, he said, Dennis is Mr. Olympia in a tank top. Off season, this guy, unbelievable. Just, you always look like you're going to crush everything. Do you feel that do you feel you ever hit your peak at 100%, even one show?
No, Never.
Yeah, I agree
never.
with you.
And I believe that maybe.
Came close.
Maybe, thinking back, I said, maybe if I would have done it myself, I would have probably, all the years I did it myself, 97, 98 USAs, I had nobody to talk to. I done everything myself. I was at my, condition-wise, I was at my best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's, you know, the thing is this. Why do things that you don't even know about? You know what I mean? Back then, you know, there was a lot, insulin was involved.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about off-season, but I'm talking about
Yeah.
carb loading.
Yes.
And insulin, carb loading. I remember Dorian told me one time, I said, why risk getting 5% better or 25% worse?
I know.
You know what I mean? And I believed it. If it wasn't for me,
Yeah.
I would have never done it.
Yeah.
So, but I listened to people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know,
Same thing with diuretics could be said.
same thing. You know,
Yeah.
same thing. I would have done things a little different. But if
Yeah.
you have a coach or you listen
You
to
have to
someone,
listen.
you don't
Otherwise, why
have to.
Yeah.
But you want to believe what he's saying.
Yeah.
You know, so
Otherwise, if it doesn't work out,
I've
you always
learned-
second guess. Was
but
it me? Was it him? Yeah.
most of the times I look better. By the time I look better getting there,
I know.
and as soon as somebody took over, now it's starting to get worse.
I remember all those battles for the Olympias. I mean, you were like unbelievable, man. Wow.
Yeah, and I don't want to talk down on nobody. That's
I
you know.
know.
And talking about Milos, was Milos coached me for a few years, and here this is what I have to say. You don't see a lot of coaches taking the responsibility. He took responsibility for a lot of years, where he knew I was better. I remember 2004. No, I don't remember what year it was. I was so on in the morning of the show. I remember, and then I'll never forget that. And then he's like, this is awesome. And I felt like great. I wouldn't have changed another thing. And he calls Milamar in his room, in my room. Milamar, take a look at him. And I remember, I'll never forget that. And Milamar said he could be a tad fuller. So it was her decision.
Oh, jeez.
He literally let Milamar decide to go for a little bit more fullness. A tad, which fucked it up.
Ah, dude.
Well, let me backtrack a little bit. It didn't really fuck it up, but what he said fucked it up was that the prejudging started an hour later. So, but if you're on, you're on. It doesn't matter if the show is the next day,
I know.
day before, but things happen.
I know.
So that's one. Yeah, no, I was never 100%. Condition-wise, I would say I was closest to 100%. Closest was 2003 and 98 USAs.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So 03 Olympia. And
So most of the times where, in 2003 I worked with Shad. You know what I mean? So, but a lot of things were different than what I was doing with Milos.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not saying that I didn't learn. I learned the most of what I know today from Milos, to be honest.
Yeah.
So when it comes to putting on size, I can tell you some things. You know what I mean? But putting on the size and getting peeled and bring that volume on stage, it's a different ball game.
different thing.
Yeah, it's a different ball game.
Tell me, when you decided to retire, so 2012 was your last show, how did you make the transition?
2010
Okay.
Last Olympia, yeah.
Okay, but your last show, when you did come back in 2012, and then you really retire after that. That was your last show, right?
Yeah, I was retired in 2010.
I know, but you still competed after.
I
So
just did the Masters Olympia literally because the audience put me on the spot. And I was like,
one-off.
so I know. I said 11 weeks before, I said, okay, I'm going to unretire. And the day after the show, I retire again.
Yeah.
So,
So officially retire 2012. How do you go from transitioning from competitive bodybuilder to becoming a businessman, and now you have, bodybuilding shows you? A lot of people have a hard time with the transition. How did you manage?
well, I never had an issue with not being the big Dennis James. You know what I mean? I'm mentally stronger than I have nothing to prove. Okay? I knew for me it was time to retire at the point where I have to look at my pictures or look at myself and say, okay, now we're talking 2009. I was already thinking about retiring. I said, I'm gonna have to right now I'm sitting here getting ready for a show, and I'm wishing, I hope that I can look like 2003, which was 6 years prior, which means, listen, you're not making any progress.
Once you get older,
So yeah, and I was 44.
yeah.
I was 44 when I retired. Plus 2 years later, 46 when I did the Masters.
Yeah.
And I was already way above the average rate. Years. So I said, if you can't improve before I don't make top 10 or drop out of top 15, I said, I don't want to go out like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I said, it's time to go.
Yeah.
And I was already doing coaching thing, and I already had my plan. But I said, you got to make sure you stay relevant. Do whatever you got to do in order to stay relevant. That was it.
And you did a good job with that. I think what you did right is to start thinking about retirement in advance as you're still competing. So that way, when the day you decide to stop, it's not a big drastic change. You've already been preparing yourself mentally, right?
Yeah, I was ready because my brain was ready to retire because I knew I didn't have it in me no more to go through the process of getting ready for shows. You got to want it, If you don't want it, if you feel like, then it's time to go.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Jay felt the same. It's not only that you see body parts getting worse. You see that. You try to hide it.
Yeah.
But if you know yourself, your sweep's gone, there's things that happen. You tell yourself, listen, what am I going to do? I'm going to sit here and end up like NASA at the end,
I know.
Couldn't even make.
That's sad.
I didn't want to do that.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Did you bring a good point? So when you retired in 2010, it's your last Olympia, and there's 2 years where you're not competing, and you decide on a whim to do, the Masters Olympia 2 years later. How was that to go from the civilian life to becoming a pro bodybuilder again? Was it hard for you to get back in that group? Because Jay tells me the hardest thing for him to compete back in 13 after, tearing the bicep and taking a break, he had such a hard time getting back in that groove. And towards the end, he was getting that groove again, but he didn't start early enough. I think that was his big problem. And you did it in even less time.
11 weeks.
You know what I mean?
I didn't have time, so I knew I had to go.
Yeah.
So I knew there was no time to think about, am I going to go work out? Do I do it twice a day or once a day? I just had, you got to go. So there was no time to think, or mentally prepare, because the crowd prepared me mentally.
Yeah. You had
I remember I was on stage, the press conference, the crowd I said, what do you guys think? And the crowd went nuts.
So you did it for the fans.
So I did it for fans only.
Yeah.
So I knew 100% that, to be honest, they had a lot of prize money too.
That helps.
That helps a lot. Because, you don't want to go through all this, be retired. Because I retired for a reason, and I said I stopped everything.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, there's no TRT, there was nothing. I was like,
wow.
This is a new life. There's no need for me to try to stay big.
Yeah.
Even though I just trained and ate, and I still kept my size for many years.
Wow.
So I didn't really lose a lot of size until I had my shoulder surgery.
Right.
And I had to basically not train for a year. But to make a long story short, at 11 weeks, I was able to do it, but I knew after 5, 6, 7 weeks, I knew, when that show's done, it's done.
Yeah.
They couldn't bring me back for $1 million. For real. Because when you look at yourself, I said, this is a different body. I was the same weight at the Masters than I was in 2003.
Wow, really?
But when I compare pictures,
not the same. Yeah.
no.
You can't beat Father Time. There comes a point where
you can't beat it.
Yeah.
You can't. Nobody can.
Yeah.
And the only one that could.
Dexter.
Why? Because he never stopped.
I know, and that's a big point.
Dexter will learn. Now, if he retires after the Olympia, he will still train because he's trying to hold on to that body. He will still train. He will back off a lot of things, but he will still train. So he will hold because he has good genetics.
Yeah.
But Dexter used to be skinny.
I know.
I promise you, it will not take that long for him to go back to being real small. And this is something he has to be prepared for.
Yeah. He doesn't like to eat. He says, I don't want to eat to be swole. I can't wait to not eat so much food all the time, So,
but you don't want to see yourself go like,
I know.
Because, because people forget you real quick.
It's going to be a mind fuck big time.
That's why I said stay relevant, do things, and he's already started this, so he's doing shows and stuff, he's on the right track.
That's awesome. D, talk about your shows. You have very successful show in Germany, right?
Awesome show in Germany.
Talk about that.
Yeah, the bad thing is right now I had to cancel it for this year.
But everybody's in the same boat.
But I started that show in 2018 for the first year because they opened up now it's the NPC Worldwide. It used to be IFFB Pro League. So I instantly thought about Germany because I know Germany's got a huge bodybuilding following.
Hardcore over there.
It's just nobody ever there that risked to put on a show that's never been there before. We have the FIBO every year, and I used to host a show at the FIBO. We used to do a bodybuilding show. It was always sold out.
Guest posers, all of them.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So Germany backs you up if they see you want to do something, you want to invest something. You have to risk a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I took a risk with the venue. This is a huge, beautiful venue. But all in all, with the screen, that's 50,000 euros a day.
Oh, wow.
So that's a huge risk. And there's no sanction fee yet. Sanction fees and, the whole show cost me close to 100,000.
Wow.
Just to have the show.
Wow.
So now, but what I hope was that the crowd loves it. That I do something, and the show has 2,000 seats. So I had pre-judging in the morning and the finals at night. Finals sold out. Pre-judging 1,200.
Wow.
So I sold 3,200 tickets. 2 years back to back.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So the show is a huge success, and I can't wait. And everybody knows that the worst thing for me right now is to cancel it because I cancel it simply because I know that I can't have crowds. And by the end of the year, I know they will not allow crowds. And if I don't have the crowds,
there's no money to be made.
That's not even the issue. I'd rather not make money. That's why I postpone it.
Yeah.
But I can't come out of pocket and pay for a show that I know is not going to make money. I can't lose. I don't want to lose.
Bad business.
Yeah. so I postponed it.
Yeah.
So, but it'll be back on next year.
2021.
October 30th, 2021.
Great.
My show here would have been June 6th, postponed to next year.
So you have one in Arizona as well?
7 years.
Awesome.
That's
that's why I have you here, so people know. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, this is about, the first time was 6 years, 2013 or 14? I think 13 or 14 is the first year.
Nice.
So now, they would have been June 6th, but the venue is shut down until October.
Okay.
So I can't get a big weekend in October, nothing in November.
Wow.
The next weekend will be available in January, and my show will be again in June, so I'll postpone it to June 5th next year.
What do you think about, real quick, about the Olympia being moved to December? It's just been announced that they were going to go from September to, because I know I saw you do an interview and you were like, I don't know who's going to prep for that. So now we know it's in December. What do you think about that? You think it's a good move?
It's a good move for the athletes to give them time to prep, because nobody can prep in 3 months. Because, you can do a diet, but for 2 months of not being able to train, you're going to have to start from zero. So, yeah, it's good for the athletes. I think it's not so good for the spectators, because, first of all, I mean, a lot of people lost their jobs. There's travel restrictions. 1 week before Christmas.
Yeah.
Now I'm sitting here 1 week before Christmas. I said, I got this $400. What am I going to do? Do I buy gifts, or do I go to the Olympia? So it's going to be a little hard, And I think they already know that it won't be the same. If they can't have an expo, or if they can, it's very hard right now to find sponsors, especially to see if you saw what happened at the Arnold.
I know.
People invested, and then this didn't even happen. So now, how can you get somebody to commit for a show that's supposedly happening in December?
Yes.
For whatever reason, it couldn't be another search, and they're like, So it's going to be hard. So I think it's awesome from Jake, Dan, and the Pro League to say we'll do it regardless, so the athletes can make money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because this is their livelihood.
I know.
So that's a good thing. So, but just be prepared that there won't be less spectators.
Yeah.
And maybe like a pay-per-view for a little bit of money.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So the worldwide can watch it live. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I'm talking like, $5, $10 a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that would be.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if they're going to reduce the price of the ticket in consideration of what's going on, being Christmas and hoping people are going to go.
They still live from foreigners, Europeans from all over the earth. And reducing the price of the tickets doesn't reduce the airplane and the hotels.
Well, they'll reopen before then, you think?
No, but the prices are still there. You still have to spend a lot of money for the airplanes.
You're right.
You know what I mean? You can't go to this. Nobody's going to come from Germany to Vegas just for 2 days. So you want to stay a week. You want to stay 4 days. And a week before Christmas, it hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts a lot of guys.
What do you think about moving it to Planet Hollywood? Are you glad it's back on the Strip?
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And simply because it's new.
Yeah.
It's awesome for the athletes.
Yeah.
Because the athletes, they go in Wednesday, they know exactly where the meeting is. Everything is just like structured already. They already know where to go.
Yeah.
So this is new. So it's more exciting for the athletes. So I think that's a plus.
Yeah, I agree.
Will you be part of the weekend? Are you coming? Or, I'm sure you'll go, but.
I'm absolutely going, yes.
But are you going to be working with Dan? Because I know you've been a part of it for a long time.
I don't know. No, since last year, I wasn't a part last year. So I hope that I still have my credentials. They gave it to me last year, so I'm sure I'm still be fine this year. But I'll be there to watch it for sure.
You're still a fan.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh yes,
it's
especially
great.
this year because I have a feeling about a few people being on that stage.
Yeah?
Yes, I have a feeling that Sean Roden will be on stage.
I hope. What do you
I
think?
have a
What do
feeling that Phil will be on stage.
you think he can take the title back? And we just did actually we have a video coming live today where Jay was asked a question: if Phil does the Olympia and Sean does the Olympia, who wins? So what do you think? Do you think that Sean at his age can still win the Olympia title?
Well, he would have won it last year.
I think so too.
So, but if Phil comes back, I think Phil wins.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, do you think that those year off or 2 years off? Did he take 2 years? No, only 1 year off so far.
Yeah, he took
Only 1 year off.
2019
Do you think that was going to be a challenge
So
for
it'll
him
be
to
2
come back?
years. He'll be
Yeah.
2 years by the Olympia
Yeah.
on September. Do I think it's a challenge?
For him.
Absolutely, but he's been training. He's been training
Yeah, he
this whole
hasn't
time.
stopped.
He
Yeah.
doesn't look like he lost size. He actually looks like he's been preparing this whole time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
no, I think he's all right. I just hope that he's going to end up on stage because then it's going to be
We'll see if you're right. We don't have to act. That would be a great Olympia.
No, I'm not saying I know.
No, I know.
this
It's a guess. It's an
a-
educated guess.
It's a wish factor. It's a wish factor. I hope he's on stage.
Oh, that'd be great.
Same as Sean. I hope to see these guys both at 100% and Brandon Curry at 100%.
Oh, my God, that'd be-
And who knows? Maybe a miracle happens and we do see Kai Green back
Kai.
on stage.
Oh, my
You
God.
never know.
You don't want to miss that Olympia if that's the case.
No.
Yeah.
But then again, you know, could be around me, could be in shape. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
Do you think Ramy will ever put it together?
I think he could if he would. I still want to believe he puts it together, but I just hope he sticks with one person and figures out what's really happening. You know what I mean? Because I think if he would have stayed with the same person since 2013, he would have been a multiple Mr. Olympia.
He would have it down by now.
Oh yeah, he'd be a multi.
It takes time for someone to get to know your body and trial and errors. And you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I think jumping around is not a
you
good
know,
thing.
as long as she stays away from thinking he needs to be big, if he goes away from that, then he's on the right track.
Yeah, you would know. You helped him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Dennis, I know we spoke longer than we anticipated. It's your training day. I don't want to intrude too much.
okay.
Thank you so much for doing this, man.
My pleasure,
I'm
brother.
glad you're looking good. You're doing well. You seem healthy. You seem happy. It was a treasure. It was a pleasure to have you on and an honor.
Thank you, man. My pleasure always. Tell Jay I said what's up.
Oh, you just told him yourself.
Jay, what's up, Jay? Say you next time bring him.
Okay, I'll try.
That'll be awesome.
So Dave Mad Max 6 with the great Dennis James for Muscle Beach TV on JayTV, and we're out.